There's something special about the Cardano community. If you're in Cardano, that means you deviated from the path of the herd. You refused to indulge in intellectual laziness. Instead, you chose deep inquiry. Cardano is a community of outliers. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss this community of outliers, some comments on Meld, the latest iteration of Catalyst, a change from Blackrock, and the latest economic freedom rankings. If you could tell that this fellow is facing a crowd of people who vehemently oppose his viewpoint, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Join me this Wednesday for Cardano PrideFest. That'll be June 28th, 5 p.m. Pacific or 12 a.m. UTC, June 29th. This should be a fantastic time. This will be a Future Fest event. Future Fest is always super fun and interesting. That's June 28th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. UTC on the 29th. Should be a great time. See you then. I'm not going to lie. Today is going to be a much shorter than normal episode. There just wasn't a lot of crypto news. This happens. I do the show 5 days a week, and some days out of the year, out of all the weekdays during the year, there are days when there just isn't a ton of news, or not news that was interesting enough for me to talk about. Anyways, there's always news, but it may not be interesting. Today's one of those days where we just don't have as many news items, but I do have something interesting. Sometime probably this week, probably tomorrow. It'll probably be tomorrow. I'm going to deliver to you a very, very different kind of episode, something I've never done before on this channel. Some of you will hate it. Some of you will hate it and have absolutely no interest in this, but I'm going to do it anyways because I'm very excited for it. And I know some of you will also like it, but possibly tomorrow, I'm going to deliver a very different kind of video to you. It'll be soon. I've been planning it, thinking about it, trying to find the right time for it for quite a while now, and maybe tomorrow will be the day. But on to today's video. So I thought this post made a very good point. This post says, being a fan of Cardano requires going against the crypto mainstream. Still, it makes sense to do it for the good of us all. And when you just look at the top part of this image, you can't quite tell what it is. Is this a bunch of static on a television? Is this representing that? Some kind of like, signal to noise kind of ratio? No, this is a giant crowd of people. And just like in the thumbnail I made for you tonight, a single person is looking out at this giant mass of humans and saying, yes, you are all wrong. And this is kind of the position we're fundamentally in Cardano. I think all of us have felt this in one way or another. If you have ever talked about Cardano to anyone else who's in crypto at all, if they're sufficiently deep in crypto, you probably had some kind of a feeling similar to this because it's no secret. We take a lot of flack in Cardano, and that's because all of us in Cardano, we're all deviants. We are. Definitionally, we are all deviants. The rest of the herd in crypto definitely goes toward Ethereum, toward Bitcoin, and that's the mainstream. That's mainstream crypto. Everybody goes toward Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's where everybody goes. And most people just follow the herd because most people, let's face it, they just want to be intellectually lazy. They're going to do whatever is the intellectually easiest thing to do. And usually that's the safety of the herd. They just kind of go with the flow. Where's the rest of the herd going? That's where I'm going to go, because then I don't have to engage in any deep intellectual inquiry. People largely want to avoid intellectual inquiry because they don't want to have to make hard decisions, make hard analysis for themselves. They don't want to have to do that analysis. They just want to follow the crowd. It's like, hey, I want to get into crypto. What's the easiest way for me to do that without having to learn the difference between various programming languages and various consensus models and various security architectures? Most people don't want to do any of that stuff. That's not what they're here for. They just want to take X amount of money, put it into a cryptocurrency ecosystem, and hopefully get rich. that's their which is exactly what doesn't usually happen to people in crypto. But I think that's their calculus. I'm going to take, some amount of money and I'm going to turn it into a bigger amount of money. And they don't want to do a whole bunch of blockchain ecosystem analysis to make that happen. So they just say, where's the herd going? That's where I'm going. And if you were to just mention, hey, I want to get into crypto in a crowded bar, for sure, one of the first words that's going to be thrown back at you is Ethereum. Okay, that's a lie. You're going to get a whole bunch of terrible answers. People are going to be like, hey, I've got some, surfer boy Corvette coin for you or something. You're going to have all kinds of terrible projects thrown at you. But if you go with the consensus, you're probably going to end up in Ethereum, Bitcoin, and that's where your intellectual laziness is going to lead you. You only end up in a blockchain ecosystem like Cardano if you do that deep intellectual inquiry. If you want to analyze everything for yourself, make all your own decisions. If you're that kind of person, you might be the type of deviant who deviates from the wisdom of the herd and ends up in Cardano. And I think that's why the Cardano ecosystem is so unique and powerful, because we're just this gigantic collection of people who not just sort of begrudgingly deviated from the herd, we aggressively, ferociously deviated from the herd, made our own decisions, did our own analysis, made our own calls. And yeah, we might have each ended up as this person right here. But I think as a group, we're all the kind of people who don't mind ending up here if we think that's actually the right position. Vast majority of humans, I think they are way more comfortable being up in this crowd, even if they have some nagging suspicions that the crowd is wrong. They pretty much live their lives by being up here in this crowd. That's not Cardano people. Cardano people, we're down here. And I'm glad that this ecosystem, we're the kind of people who end up down here. Not necessarily because we always want to be down here, but we tend to end up down here if this is actually the right choice because we're making our own calls. It looks like we still have questions sort of surfacing about the path taken by the Meld project. This post says, I was just wondering if I simply missed the "we are building our own blockchain with the millions of ADA you gave us" portion of Meld's original roadmap. It turns out I did not. And if you look at these images, one of them that, according to this URL up here, is from meld.com, says, built on Cardano. And it looks like maybe this is from the Wayback Machine. The date shown here is June 17th, 2021. And a section of this says, built on Cardano, the Meld protocol is built on the Cardano blockchain, a next generation blockchain delivering fast, safe, and cost-effective infrastructure for a new generation of DeFi. The next one looks like it's from September 2nd, 2021, from the meld.gitbook.io. It says, protocol functions. The Meld protocol is building the core DeFi infrastructure on Cardano by offering a list of services at the heart of decentralized finance. So seems pretty reasonable. I mean, definitely there was some money raised there. And, I think a lot of people are asking questions very similar to this right now. Do you hate ESG? Well, if you do, Axios has an article here that you might love. This article says, Larry Fink ashamed to be part of ESG political debate. As you may know, Larry Fink is the head of Blackrock, the company that owns everything. The article says Blackrock CEO Larry Fink said he's no longer using the term ESG, environment, social, and governance, because it is being politically weaponized, and he's ashamed to be part of the debate on the issue. So he basically says that Ron DeSantis, as Florida governor, pulled $2 billion in assets from BlackRock, which hurt them, but not really that much because last year was the company's best year of net flows of 200 billion from US clients. And then he says that the far left and the far right were kind of misusing the term ESG. And then he sort of like doubled back later on in the same talk and said that he didn't say that he was ashamed of being a part of the ESG debate. The article points out that he actually did say it, and then he just sort of, indicates that they're distancing themselves from this whole ESG terminology. And I think the interesting thing is, I think the number of people who are turned off by the idea of this company, Blackrock, that seems to own everything, sort of single-handedly, the perception is, that they sort of single-handedly force this ESG regime of principles on everybody. I think people were actually more sort of opposed to that than they were to some of the individual things here, like the environment. Like, obviously, environmental issues are highly politicized and they're highly polarizing. But still, I think there's certain things about, the environment that everybody could agree on. Social and governance, you sort of get into this hazy territory, and I think there's a lot more polarizing things maybe in some of those categories. The whole fossil fuel thing and climate change, obviously that's a giant polarizing issue inside the environmental piece. There's also a lot of weird social and governance pieces kind of inside the S and the G parts of this that I think people were like, wait a second, how is one company sort of single-handedly pushing this on all of us from the top? But it looks like Larry Fink and BlackRock, they're perceptive of what's going on there, and they're just going to kind of sort of ease their way away from that now that you've got giant states like Florida pulling $2 billion from them over it. Finally, here we've got the 2023 Index of Economic Freedom. And the top countries are no surprise. We've got Singapore and Switzerland. Definitely, if somebody just asked me off the cuff, who seems to have the most economic freedom in the world, those two jurisdictions would certainly be in the conversation. And number 3, Ireland. Great job, Ireland. Then you've got Taiwan. So all those make sense to me. Then we come down to mostly free, and we've pretty much got a lot of European countries, then a few additions: New Zealand, South Korea, Canada, Cyprus. None of those are a surprise. Almost all the rest of the countries I think are European. Then once we get past the Czech Republic, we get Chile and Austria, and then Austria, then the UAE, then the United States. Number 25, USA. I think you can do a little bit better than 25, but you'd probably have to add some economic freedom in places where some of you don't really want to. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're starting out a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.